Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we're going to be continuing Spy X Family Project W.E.B. What if Loid Forager was Spider-Man Noir? Season 1, Part 5. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. So we can safely say we've gotten through the first half of Season 1 of Spy X Family. For those of you who don't know, this anime, currently on Season 1 with Season 2 and a movie in the works, is the length of 25 episodes. I was able to cover the first half of Season 1 by covering the first 12 episodes, and now we'll be covering episodes 13 through 25, with the second half of the season beginning here. In the beginning, we were introduced to the Forager family like before, although with certain twists and turns added to their origins, with a lot more secrets that will be revealed in the near future. How will Loid handle being a family man, a spy, and a hero? Especially when more forces of darkness start to converge all in one area. For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue the story. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Tried to close my heart and I locked it away. This is how I've been living my life until now. And our stories came together. Even if the light doesn't shine so bright like any in this town, I know that I needed you. No matter all the things we've been through. Place a shiny boat of lovely scenes. Life is like a movie I see clear now. On my journey I collect them like souvenirs, memories that can be erased. I'll keep them safe. The seasons always come and go so fast. I shed a tear hoping they'll forever last. I cannot explain how grateful I am for this home and all of the things that you have given me. Walking onward, hurrying, sometimes running to you. I will run to you on this long road. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm running onward. Maybe I should slow down, catch my breath. Slow down and take in the sights on this road. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
In this world, time can often mean more than you might think. When a man reaches the end of his life, does he ask for more money, power, wealth? No, he simply asks for more time. Time is something you don't truly value until you absolutely have to. Sometimes the difference between life and death, it comes down to hours, minutes, mere seconds, and even closer ticks of time than that. One false move, and the next thing you know, you find yourself in a situation you don't want to be in. But time is relative. As our story continues, we follow the Forager family. The father, Loid Forager, aka Twilight, also known as Spider-Man. A spy from the country of the West, Westalis, for the organization known as WISE. His mission? To form a family in Ostania, to have the child of said family enroll in the prestigious Eton College, to get close to the son of his target, Donovan Desmond, leader of the political party of Ostania, in order to cover the secrets and to prevent a potential war between the countries of the East and the countries of the West. The mother, Yor Breyer. Occupation, assassin. Known as the Thorn Princess, a former member of the Black Widow Project. And then finally, the daughter, Anya Forger. Occupation, student. Known ability, telepath, with the ability to read minds. The three family members, each one hiding a secret of their own, blending in to form the perfect family. But what were they doing today of all days? Well, Anya had recently gotten a Stella badge, one of 8 that was needed, not only for her benefit, but for Loid, the benefit of the mission. She had gotten the Stella when she used her mind reading while at Loid's job, where he works as a psychiatrist. While there, a young boy was swimming in the therapy pool, and he just so happened to be drowning. Of course, Anya, being a mind reader, was able to detect this, and using what little wits she had, she was able to get to the boy in time, and with help from Loid, was able to save the young man's life. Although she didn't really catch his name, she was too focused on doing a good deed. Well, doing that good deed had earned her a Stella badge, and for Loid, in order to keep her spirits high, for her to keep going, and for her to improve, he decided to reward her by getting her a pet, a dog. Now, while Anya was super excited, and Yor being just as excited for her own daughter, Loid, well, he wasn't feeling all that great. It was just a common cold. It was something everyone got, but Loid hated it for a specific reason. To break the fourth wall, if I may, Spider-Man's powers in general have always gone through a flux over the years. There are many things that affect his powers a lot more potent than most. However, one thing that's almost been consistent with all Spider-Men is that typically their powers are a lot more dulled whenever they catch a common cold or a virus of some sorts. Now, this isn't to say that Loid loses power in any way, shape, or form, but let's just say that whenever Loid or any spider-like individual has a flu or a cold or a sickness of some kind, it causes their powers to be put on what I would like to call the lowest of settings that you can. Meaning that their super strength, it's a little on the fritz. They go from being able to lift up a couple of tons with ease to struggling a lot more than you might expect them to. It also means that they don't stick to surfaces as easily. It just means they have to put in a lot more effort. And in Loid's case, the organic webbing that he's capable of using, well, it's not as potent or nearly as strong as it needs to be for swinging. Sure, you can take your chances, and who knows, you might get halfway down a busy street with no issue, but one web in particular may not be strong enough, and the next thing you know, you're slipping and you're falling. But Loid was prepared for such things. That's why he had web shooters made in the first place, in the event that his organic webs should ever be compromised in any way. Loid didn't mind using the web shooters. In fact, they were pretty efficient. He only really needed to use his organic webbing when he didn't really have a choice. But the main reason why he chose not to use it as often was because he didn't want to leave behind any evidence. Man-made webs, well, they could dissolve and be destroyed easily. Organic webbing could leave a trace of DNA behind, and that could potentially lead to disaster if it fell into the wrong hands. It was really just a matter of picking your poison, knowing when you needed to use your organic webs and when you needed to just use a web shooter. But in either case, Loid was always able to make it work. As they had gone to pick up the dog, it was at that moment that Loid would be pulled away, or Twilight to be more specific. An urgent mission had come up and he couldn't turn it down. You see, the foreign minister of Westalis, Foreign Minister Brents, was in the country of Ostania for a peaceful meeting between the two nations, and word had gotten out that a potential assassination was in the works. If that was even allowed to take place, or if even the attempt was made public knowledge, all-out war could occur between the two nations, whose form of alliance and peace was on nothing more but thin ice. A thin ice ready to break at just the touch of the slightest of weights. Even so much as a feather could be enough to destroy everything. As such, Loid would have to leave both Anya and Yor at the pet shop, using the excuse of having to go to the bathroom, although for how long he could make it work, he wasn't entirely sure. While Anya was still looking through the number of dogs, one dog in particular would walk by. Walking past the store, it was a larger dog of a white color. As Anya would somehow read the dog's mind, she could see that the dog was able to see something. It looked like her family. But that couldn't be possible. Anya had to investigate. Of course, Yor was too busy trying to talk to the owner about what dogs they should get, being so caught up in the conversation that she didn't even notice that Anya had left her side. As Anya would follow behind the man and the dog, she would eventually find a warehouse where they were all being kept, the dog along with other dogs in particular. The individuals in the warehouse, though, they were not of the kindly sorts. They were a group of young political students of Ostania who were not too fond of Westalis and were looking to lead a revolution of their own. They were the ones who were going to be carrying out the assassination. The leader, a young man named Keith, would be going over the plans. Keith, are you sure about this? Of course. You don't stop believing in the cause just because things get rough. I knew that something was up when Cody didn't arrive. He probably got picked up by the police. You think the secret police are onto us? It doesn't matter. We see this through till the end. And besides, they were so gracious enough to allow a little backup on our end. We have one. That's all we need. So don't worry about it. Of course, despite Anya's best attempts at hiding, she would be discovered. The group now not knowing what to do with the young girl, although Keith, he was more than ready to just offer. Even if she was a kid, they couldn't allow anyone to get into the way of their plans. However, the dog that Anya had read the mind of, it suddenly sprung into action, pulling the young girl to safety as the two would attempt to run for their lives. By the time Yor had realized what had happened, Anya was gone, and now Yor was a nervous wreck. She had to find little Anya quickly. She had been watching the news, hearing about kidnappers who took girls off to be sold into marriage. Unfortunately, Yor was not the sharpest tool in the shed, despite being someone proficient with using sharp tools. And the last thing she wanted for poor little Anya was to be married off to some stranger. After all, she only just got married, and she was 27. However, before Yor could leave, she felt a hand touch her shoulder. She turned to see a woman modestly dressed with long red hair tied up akin to her own. It's been a while, hasn't it, Yor? Huh? Or should I say, number 13? I think we should go somewhere private to talk, don't you agree? The back alley behind the store, turned into a battlefield. Yor pulling out her 2 knives as she defended off against the red-haired woman. The two started bouncing off from wall to wall in the alley as they went fighting, each one going for the kill, although both of them being pretty evenly matched. By the time the two stalemated, Yor had to take the offensive. Natasha! How are you? Surprised to see me? I knew you would be. But I... What? Before Natasha could even speak, she felt Yor wrap her arms around her. You're okay! Natasha! You're okay! Nice to see you too, Yor. Well, time for a little backstory now, isn't it? This here is Natasha Romanoff. Although I'm sure you're all familiar with her. In this world, there was a project known as the Black Widow Project. It started off with 100 girls, but eventually it came down to 13. 13 girls, each one marked with a number, 1 to 13. They were the best of what remained. Every other girl that couldn't hack it, every other girl with a defect, they were decommissioned. But for the 13 that remained, they were going to move on to the final stage. But what was the final stage, you might be asking? The girls didn't know at first. They thought that all this training was going to be of their benefit and benefit to the country. However, Natasha and Yor, when they did some digging around, they found out some things. Some things about the Black Widow Project, about the true horrors that went into it. And as such, they wanted to plan their escape. However, the night of, the final test had begun. By the time Yor and Natasha had tried to reach the others, they were, for lack of a better term, reprogrammed. For Natasha and for Yor, the only thing they could do in that moment was to escape. However, for Yor, when she had managed to get further away than Natasha, she thought that Natasha had died. Yor eventually found her brother again, the two of them going under a different name. They originally had the name of their father, but instead their names were changed to that of their aunt, a former family member who died a long time ago, Briar. And since they shared blood with the Briar family, it was easy enough to change their name to that as well. As such, Yor and Yuri have been under the Briar name ever since. For Yuri, the reason why Yor was never too concerned about his safety was because he ended up joining the secret police. He was as safe as he could be. And the reason why Yor was always keeping a distance from Yuri wasn't just for her assassin career, but it was also to keep him safe. The last thing she expected was for Natasha, of all people, to arrive. How did you... I've been looking for you for a long time, Yor. I still didn't think that it would take so long. And to find you in a pet shop of all places. What were you doing there? Oh, I was there with my husband and with my daughter. Yor, you have a child? Yes, but Before Yor could finish, though, Natasha would pull her to the side immediately. I can't believe it. You were actually able to go against the programming. I'm a bit envious. Unfortunately for Natasha, unlike Yor, who remained unsullied, Natasha had gone through the first stage of the final test. A test where, to be respectful of the situation, it takes away a woman's ability to give birth. That was the one thing all of the widows had gone through except for Yor. Safe to say, Natasha was able to at least save her from that fate. Although Natasha still had the wrong idea altogether. Anya was not her blood daughter, but Natasha, well, she was too caught up in the idea of Yor having a child to even want to be corrected. But now that made her fear for the worst. Where was their daughter? Natasha would ask to Yor. And then Yor realized she was supposed to be finding Anya. In the meantime, though, Anya was being chased by one of the bad guys, the leader of the operation, Keith. He had called in for their special backup. He didn't think they'd have to use it so soon, but it was better now than never. He had Anya cornered, along with that dog that he needed back as well. However, before Keith and his associates could get closer, the two other goons would be taken out by Natasha and by Yor respectively, the two standing firm against Keith. What the? Crazy housewives also? This is just getting from bad to worse. In time, though, another figure would arrive, jumping from the roof and landing in the middle of them. The figure was clad in blue and black armor, wearing a hood and a skull-like mask with a red visor. The figure said nothing, merely cocking its head back and forth. "What is that?" Yor would say. Natasha, as Anya was set down, "Your daughter needs to get out of here." "What?" "She needs to go." Yor would look to Anya, as Yor would give her the nod to get as far away and to find Loid. Anya would jump on the dog's back and leave. However, before she could make her escape, the dog would get a vision of a terrible future, one where her father was dead. And now, while Anya had to deal with this crisis, the two widows stood in the alleyway, and standing across from them, it's Taskmaster. Taskmaster? But I thought... It doesn't matter. We have to stop it here and now. Get rid of those two. I'm gonna go after the girl. Keith would leave, Taskmaster now having its instructions. It sized the two up before getting into a stance. Both Yor and Natasha would lunge at Taskmaster, the 2-on-1 fight beginning. Safe to say, facing off against this foe was easier said than done. For every move that Natasha and Yor were able to land, Taskmaster was able to copy it with ease, reflecting their attacks back onto them. They weren't able to get to its blind spots. They weren't able to stop it in any way. Taskmaster came nearly close to taking both of their heads off on numerous occasions. It finally got to the point in the fight where the only thing they could do was outpower it with brute force. Thankfully, they were able to maneuver their way around the Taskmaster just long enough, Natasha managing to hold out its head in place while restraining its arms, and Yor, with all the strength she could muster, would deliver a kick to the side of its head, causing it to turn and snap around, breaking the neck completely and killing Taskmaster. The girls were in tattered clothing now, looking like they had been in the fight of their lives. But Natasha, that didn't feel right. "What's the matter?" Yor would ask. "No, that's not it. It shouldn't have been this easy." They would go and readjust the neck. As they pulled off the mask, the two girls would be horrified looking at the face down below. "Is that Alice?" They pulled down her clothing further, and they saw on her neck the tattoo for the number 4, the 4th Black Widow. "This isn't the real Taskmaster," Natasha would say. She took a closer look at the mask. It was a neuro-scanning mask. Essentially being, the mask had the ability to read an opponent's movements and then telegraph that into memory into the person that was wearing it. But even more, it was the fact that this mask had an emitter and a link, along with a camera lens someone was watching this fight. Yor and Natasha had to evaluate the situation. If this was just one, then that meant that there were more to come. If I had to theorize, outside of the two of us, the other 11 were turned into this. The masks have a transmitter and a camera link. What do you think, Yor would say? If I had to take a guess, it probably means that all of their visions are linked together. They may not be right here in this moment, but the others were watching the fight. They were studying, copying our movements, and now they all have the updated information. That means each time we fight them, even if we manage to beat them, they're just going to get stronger. But I don't get it. Why would they be? You know why they're after us. We're the ones that escaped from the program. I've been trying to find you, at least to see if you hadn't succumbed to this yet. I haven't, thankfully. I've been keeping a very low profile. I don't even go under my old name anymore anyway. The two would quickly leave after disposing of the body. They had to try to find Anya quickly and make sure she was alright. In the meantime, though, Anya would arrive to the clock tower with the dog that could now see into the future. She had arrived, although unfortunately she couldn't tell time, but thankfully an older man was able to assist her. She had 30 minutes until the clock struck 12, and that was when it was supposed to happen. After making her way into the abandoned clock tower, Anya would find the room where the bomb was. While she couldn't open the door, thus triggering the bomb, there was a small little window right beside it. After crawling inside with help from the dog, she was able to find where the bomb was, and she felt like it was up to her. It was up to Starlight Princess Anya to save the day. But there was a problem. In the show, you're just supposed to be able to cut the red wire or the green wire, but all the wires are black. She didn't know what to do. Time was running out. If Papa came here, maybe she could at least warn him not to open the door, but then Papa would find out she has powers and not want her anymore. But if she doesn't do anything, then Papa will die. She had to come up with something, anything. Maybe she could leave a note or... She then had her idea. A bottle of ketchup. It was crude, and safe to say, downright ugly, but she thought she got the point across. Now the only thing she could do was wait outside and hope that her dad would get the message. By the time Loid and other agents would arrive on the scene, making sure to clear out any potential bombs or threats, they arrived to the clock tower where they would see the message crudely drawn. While a few of the agents were ready to bypass it and rush straight in, Loid had sense enough to stop them. It was faint, but his spider sense was tingling. As he was able to use a mirror and look through the window, he saw that there was a bomb. Thankfully, there were agents of Ostania on their way also. They would leave a proper note and tell them to look through and be careful when disarming it before opening the door. Had they not been able to check, and with Loid's senses already being as dulled as they were, this could have been a disaster. As for Anya, she was able to read the dog's mind and see that the future where her and her mother were left behind, it was no longer going to happen. But now, the family was still alive. They had done it. But now the final leg of Loid's mission was still underway, in getting the Foreign Minister Brents out of harm's way, as the only terrorist that remained was still trying to see this mission through till the end. Loid would go under the disguise of the Foreign Minister, leading the terrorist away on a high-speed wild goose chase far enough from civilian seeing eyes. With only one dog left, Keith would sink it onto the Prime Minister, who exited from his car and ran into a back alleyway near the river. He was waiting for the signal. When the dog bit into the Prime Minister, with nowhere for it to run, he would use the explosives tied to the holster connected to the dog and would send them flying sky high. Loid, almost backed into a corner, would turn to see the dog lunging towards him as he raised his gun, shooting at the holster, freeing the dog and taking the bomb, throwing it into the river. However, his forearm was bit by the dog, and when Keith saw that, he believed that the plan was now in motion. He would trigger the explosives, believing that he had finally succeeded. However, that was not the case. Loid would stand, taking off the disguising mask looking like Foreign Minister Brent's, and revealing the mask of Spider-Man. What the? Spider-Man? Keith would try to get away in his bullet-ridden car. However, Loid would use his web shooters to grab at the back tail end of the car, stopping it in its tracks before pulling the young man out. No! It can't end like this! Except it did. Give up this futile dream of yours. Your revolution is over. That's what you think. But I'm not going down so easily. Even while Keith was restrained, Loid's spider sense was strong enough for him to back away, as Keith crushed the false tooth in his mouth, revealing a capsule. What are you? I ain't like the others. This ain't some game or some way to be angsty. This is how I live. Cut off one head? Kid, calm down. And 2 more shall grow in its place. Kid, you need to stop this before you... Hail Hydra. He bit down onto the capsule, and his head would explode. Loid had to look away from the gruesomeness of it all. Hail Hydra? But that couldn't possibly mean... By the time things were all said and done, Loid had met and made sure that all in all that there wasn't any too much damage. Meeting with his handler, now under the guise of Twilight. Handler Sylvia would go over the details of what had happened. When she heard what Twilight heard, it caused a dark feeling to sink into her soul. Twilight, are you sure that's what he said? I can confirm it as clear as day. He said, Hail Hydra. This is bad. Hydra, a subgroup in the military of Ostania. At least that's what they used to be during the last Great War. You see, the country of Ostania was not originally built the way it was today. During the last Great War and conflict, Hydra was the ruling political party at the time. Although, after their loss in the war, Hydra's beliefs were deemed to be too extreme, and they were outlawed in both Westalis and Ostania, both countries at least coming to the agreement that regardless of their indifference, they were still better off with a world without Hydra. However, Hydra had not truly died. Its original founder, a man who was said to have fought in the war. He fought to the point where he had lost all his hair, to where his skin was soaked in the blood of his enemies. until eventually his skin was a dark crimson red. He was known as the Red Skull, although eventually the general had met his end in the war, along with all those who followed behind him. It was thought of that Hydra as an agency and as a political party were all but gone. But if this young man was able to say such a thing and then commit such an act, then that was further from the truth. If Hydra was truly in the works, then it was safe to say that things had just become a lot more complicated. In a hotel room, figures in the shadows would look onto the news, seeing what had happened. I knew we shouldn't have sent just one. It said that it died in an alleyway fighting against two rogues. Weren't you supposed to be taking care of that, Taskmaster? Look, I lost one operative. That's bad enough. You know how much that's gonna set us back? But I've still got 10 more in the wings ready to go. And besides, you were the ones that chose to use mere college students. Had you gone with professionals, the point of the Taskmaster was not to see if we could succeed or fail in that regard, although their success would have propelled us and our agenda a lot more quickly. Ah, yeah, Doc. You and your theory. It's a theory that will be proven true. If you give the youth a cause worth believing and worth fighting in, then you can mold and shape a next generation. In either case, what's the next move? For now, we wait and observe. Testimony says that the Spider-Man was on the scene. Yeah, I got a feeling. I've been watching his movements. I don't think he's from Ostania. Oh? His fighting style. He has a blend from across the world, but he seems to rely on a fighting style used in Westalis. I should know, I've gone up against their agents in the past. And what of their best agent? Have you gotten any closer to tracking Twilight yet? No, I haven't. The guy's a damn ghost. Impossible to find. But the bounty still stands, doesn't it? Of course. If you can bring the head of Twilight or the head of Spider-Man, you will be compensated well. Then it's good to see we still have an understanding then. I'll get to work on it. After all, you're the one that's paying for all this, and I don't like being made a liar. I am gonna find them one way or another. But I still don't understand why you want those rogue widows. I doubt they could be of any use. One of those widows did not undergo the test, meaning she can still give birth. You know how modified those widows were. One that can still birth a child. That is very rare. And if she does have a child, that could be a problem. We do not need that sort of DNA getting into the world that we cannot control. So, if by all means, bringing in the one that can birth is of top priority, and bringing her in alive is even more crucial. And for the one that can't, her head will still fetch you a fine price, so no need to worry. Understood. Taskmaster, hail Hydra. You can keep that to yourself. I don't give a damn about you or your cause. I'm nothing but a bounty hunter. A hired gun that's being charged for the highest price. I bring in the target, you pay me. You keep your damn political ideals to yourself. I understand. Well, happy hunting to you. By the end of the day, Loid, tired and exhausted, managed to meet up with Yor and with Anya, and with Yor introducing her friend, Natasha Romanoff. Safe to say, Loid would have to chew out Anya for running away, and seeing that the dog she had was actually one of the dogs that had been used in the potential terrorist plot, he was prepared to just send it back off to the agents of W.E.B. But when Anya made it very clear that she wanted this dog in particular for herself, handler Sylvia decided that for now, it was best if the dog could stay with the Forger family. After all, if anyone could keep an eye on it, Loid would definitely be the most capable. They would have to make sure to get the dog vetted and cleaned, and Sylvia would see to that. And a few days later, Anya would have her own doggy. When coming up with the name, Anya decided to go with Bond, as paying homage to her favorite cartoon hero, Bondman. But that wasn't the only surprise. Yor believed that they could use some extra help, and as such, she offered for her friend Natasha to act as a nanny of sorts, someone who could help get Anya to and from school and help out with any other things that they might need. Of course, Loid was suspicious of Natasha after all. He didn't know a thing about this woman. Although it didn't take long for Frankie to run through her files, and for the most part, she was clean. Although he'd still have to make sure he kept an eye out. And as for Loid, Natasha would be doing the same. The reason she agreed to this was to make sure that Yor and Anya were safe, not knowing when another attack was going to come. Safe to say, the Forger family was growing, getting bigger and stronger, as the enemies of the darkness would also continue to grow as well. The balance of power between two great nations, a sleeping giant of pure evil on the rise, and the criminal underworld continuing to flummox as it ebbed and flowed with time. But for now, there wasn't any need to worry about such things. Seeing that precious smile on her face once again, Loid remembered why he did all of this, and he only vowed even further to stick true to his promise. No matter what happened, even if it cost him his life, even if it meant that they hated him when this was over, he would create a world where Yor and Anya and Bond, where they could all be safe, where no child would ever have to cry. This was a promise he would see through till the end. This concludes Spy X Family Project W.E.B. What If Loid Forger Was Spider-Man Noir, Season 1, Part 5. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Neon Genesis Evangelion The Spider's Thesis. What If Shinji Was Spider-Man, Part 5. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington, signing off, and I'll see you next time.